Hello, Giants fans, and welcome to a new edition of the Valentine's Views podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you're listening across the Big Blue View Radio Network, please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, Giants are facing the San Francisco 49ers this week. Quick turnaround from the miracle in Glendale, I guess, on Sunday as the Giants came back from a 21-point third quarter deficit to beat the Cardinals. This week, the Giants get a little bit of an upgrade in competition facing the San Francisco 49ers. And here to help me break down that game is Jay Aponte of SB Nation's Niners Nation. Jay, thank you very, very much for hopping on the show.
Ed, thanks for the invite. Really, this game feels a little bit more personal, being that I'm from northern New Jersey, just a little bit, but I'm happy to talk ball with you.
I was going to say, we talked a little bit about that off air, and I see the Yankee hat, and you told me that that MetLife Stadium is basically out your window. So,
Yep.
so I need an explanation. How is Jay Aponte? This is this is journalism now. How is Jay Aponte a San Francisco 49ers fan with the place where the New York Giants play basically visible from your window? How does that happen?
On certain nights when the stadium's going crazy, you can kind of hear it. That's how close I am. But, I've lived in northern New Jersey my whole life. My father's from the Bronx. So if you see the Yankee hat, it's basically there's certain things that you can have a choice on. It's either New York Yankees or you don't live here. So that's obviously one thing, right? But my father was stationed in Indiana when he was in the Air Force, and he was allowed to take classes at a certain university. He chose Indiana. So he said to me, he went to a football game over at Notre Dame, which isn't too far from Indiana. And there was a skinny guy who came into the game in the second half, and Notre Dame was losing, and he was wearing number 3. Guy ended up being Joe Montana. And eventually he said, wherever that guy goes, I'm going to go follow him wherever he goes. And they wound up winning that game, and the rest is history. And I've been a 49er fan ever since. Funny enough, my father has gone back to being a full Giants fan. So he kind of gave me the 49ers and just went right back to being a Giants fan. But I love him for that. And I'm lucky enough now to say that, I can cover the team for a living, even as far as I am.
So he gave you the 49ers, and then he just threw you under the bus and left.
He went right back. It felt like right after Joe left. And he was around a little bit for Steve. And it just felt like all of a sudden all this Giants gear started popping back up in the house, and my dad went right back. But God love him. It's cool. I love that he loves that.
Tell me he goes to Giants games and leaves you home.
No, I love going to Giants games with him. I mean, the only problem is that, during the week, we have so much to do with writing and stuff. So it would have to be on a week that the Niners are not playing. But I love going to Giants Day. I love going to MetLife. It's not only it's super close, but I love the atmosphere. And, going to football games is great, especially when it's that close. I've lived in Hudson County, Hoboken my whole life, and it's about 15 minutes from the stadium. But now I'm so close to the stadium, it's really outside my window.
Well, maybe we'll work on you. We'll get you. We'll get your kind of twisted mind straightened out, and maybe you can come work for me.
Hey, I would love that. Honestly, it's really close. If I could walk to the stadium and take care of things, that sounds great to me.
We just won't tell Kyle Posey, who runs Niners Nation. We just won't tell Kyle about this plan. Kyle, God, we hope you're not watching the show, Kyle. We hope you're not watching or listening because you don't know anything about this.
Shout out to the big boss, Kyle. But yeah, that's pretty funny. It's always a better idea to cover a team that's more local. But I love the 49ers, and it's been nothing but a blast since Kyle brought me on. It's been something that I've always dreamt of doing.
So, back in the day, before we even get into Thursday night, back in the day, this was quite the rivalry.
It was.
It's not really that anymore. I mean, just does Giants, other than the fact that you're from northern Jersey and all that, does it mean anything to you? Anything special? Giants, is it just a family thing for you at this point?
No, it definitely does. I mean, I'm old enough to remember Leonard Marshall knocking out Joe Montana in what realistically was Joe Montana's last game as a 49er, and kind of the passing of the torch from that. Obviously you have the moments where, the wild card game with the comeback and the botched field goal, and then you have the Kyle Williams fumble, and you have certain moments like that. There is something really juiced up about Giants-49ers always, and it's gone back further than than I've been born. But for me, obviously the touch of being here with a lot of Giants fans gives it that extra juice. But there's just something about seeing that old school Giants logo with the word Giants with the line under it and those blue uniforms when the Giants and the 49ers seem to lock up all the time in the playoffs that makes me remember, what was so special about this rivalry. And then to fast forward to the wild card game with Terrell Owens and Michael Strahan, and then the NFC Championship game before the Giants win the Super Bowl. Whenever the 49ers and Giants lock up, it always seems to bring back all of those memories. So it doesn't have the juice that it used to have, but it still holds a special place in my heart.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And by the way, I'm a big fan of the Giants on the side of the helmet. I'm not a big fan
Yes.
of the lowercase ny. I'm it I'm just lower. That looks, first of all, it looks wimpy, and
Mm-hmm.
second of all, they've been in New Jersey for how many years now?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. My thing,
I'm
Ed,
just
is my thing, Ed, is those color rush jerseys that you guys wear with those with the Giants logo, that the all white. I mean, the 49ers are going to win their 94 throwbacks. How did you guys not make it happen that we would have the color rush jersey against the 94 jerseys? It would have been the greatest matchup of uniforms, I think, in my opinion.
I don't know. I think I'm gonna have to go yell at the Giants equipment staff. But hey, let's talk a little bit about Thursday night, and let me actually start here. Since you've got the connection to the Giants, you look at this. The 49ers are a 10.5 point favorite. Everybody thinks this is a cakewalk for the 49ers. Just what do you think of this Giants team, and where it's going, in the direction that it's moving in, with Joe Shane, Brian Dable, Daniel Jones, all of that? What do you think of this version of the Giants?
Honestly, right now it's two games and it's hard to say that anything's a disappointment, but I did not see you guys coming out of the gates like this. Obviously, the first week, we don't want to get into that. Whatever happened, it was rain soaked. It just wasn't the best outcome right there. And then obviously what happens with Arizona. But last season, the 49ers, I'm sorry, the Giants were such a fun team to watch. And it started from week one with Brian Dabble going for two right away. And that's a culture shifter, right? Like, this is a guy that says, listen, we've got to change things here, and I'm not here to mess around. Winning that game in Tennessee right there signified, here we go. We're changing the culture here. And you guys go through this season where Daniel Jones takes all these steps. Saquon Barkley stays healthy. You guys do such a great job by finding Isaiah Hodgins at the end of the year. And then you go into Minnesota and you beat them. And I had the feeling going into this season, like, well, the Giants are a bit of an upstart team, right? You get Jalen Hyatt, love him in the draft. You bring in Darren Waller, who is a tight end, but he doubles like a wide receiver. You bring back Barkley. You start to think Evan Neal is going to take steps. Andrew Thomas is obviously a baller. Like, you start to feel like you guys are building something, but then 2 games in, this is how it goes. This is not indicative of the team that I thought I would be seeing this year, and I had much higher thoughts of you guys this year than what you've shown so far. But that doesn't mean that within 15 games there can't be any steps or any growth. And I think that's the best part about this, is no matter how badly it started for the first 6 quarters of the season, I believe, for the first 6 quarters, the last two have at least put you in a spot where you've won a game now. Who knows what's going to happen Thursday? And you still will have 14 games after to fix the ship. I just really love the direction you guys are going in, the way you guys have been drafting. And I love the coaching staff and the culture that you guys are building over there.
Right. I think the interesting thing is, obviously, 60-0 after 6 quarters of play is not a good look. But when you really look at it, I think everybody probably would have expected the Giants to be 1-1 after 2 games.
Very
It
fair.
hasn't looked pretty. It hasn't been what anyone would have anticipated. But the way that they won on Sunday is one of those momentum builders, can be a season shifter. And just, spinning forward to Thursday night, from the 49ers perspective, I mean, is there any worry? Is there any thought that you're going to be facing a Giants team that might carry that sort of comeback, 31 points in the second half, carry that sort of momentum into Thursday night?
I mean, that's always the worry. This is the NFL. Guys get paid on that other side too. Look, take for instance the 49ers. In week one, they're headed into Pittsburgh. You think that's going to be a tough game? Well, the 49ers walked all over the Steelers. Then you get into week two, and the Los Angeles Rams are there, and you say, well, no Cooper Kupp, and they're a little bit roster barren. And the Rams gave the 49ers all they can handle. Now, albeit that's a divisional game and everything, but this is the NFL. It's very much momentum driven, and it's week to week. The only thing that would concern me is the fact that Saquon Barkley is probably on the wrong side of questionable. I know that the coach said today that he's not ruling him out. But what you guys have that is something that's a little bit nerve-wracking for 49er fans is a mobile quarterback and a guy who can make things happen with his legs. And the 49ers have struggled to contain guys like that, whether it be Russell Wilson or, even Dak Prescott, guys who can move just a little bit. Not necessarily running quarterbacks. Those will probably be the worst. But guys who can pick things up with their legs when the play breaks down on third down. If the 49ers cannot contain Daniel Jones in the pocket and he's able to run around and continue to get first downs and continue drives and keep that defense on the field for a little bit, it's going to be tough sledding for the 49ers if they're not careful. Now, you can look at both rosters and say, hey, listen, this one roster has a huge discrepancy against the other. But this is the NFL. You expect Brian Daboll to draw things up, put him in a position where he can play well. And you never know if that momentum carries over from Thursday and they start out hot and maybe the 49ers come out flat in a short week in which they just had a physical game with the Rams. Things can, change. And that's kind of where it is, where in the beginning of the game, you got to come out a little bit hot in front of the home crowd. If you don't, the Giants really don't. They have nothing to lose. No one is betting on them right now in this game. And that's a dangerous thing to play against.
Absolutely. One of the things about the NFL is the type of game that happened week one with the Giants Cowboys. In the NFL, those games are aberrations.
Right.
What you see more often than not is the kind of game that the 49ers played against the Rams last week. Now, the 49ers are better than the Rams. They have a better roster. They have more talent. But these are still professional football players. They're still among the best players in the world. And those games still come down to 5, 6, 7 plays. It's just a matter of, the teams that are significantly better usually make the majority of those plays. And like when it was Giants Cowboys, most of those swing plays turned into touchdowns for Dallas. And that's how you get blowouts. But usually, even in blowouts, you can identify a half a dozen plays that would have, if not changed the outcome, would have made it much closer.
100%. Turnovers are always going to kill you. And in this league, you cannot turn the ball over. And that was really the difference between the 49ers and Rams game. Matthew Stafford threw 2 interceptions. The 49ers didn't turn the ball over. And that game was so contested that it felt like the first team to make, to have a turnover or to make a play was the one that was going to swing the game. And again, in a game where it was raining, over here at MetLife and the Cowboys were juiced up in that game, obviously, it started an avalanche, unfortunately. And then you start to get away from your game plan. And then you start to try to throw yourself back into the game because you start to see that they're up by so much. Those games are aberrations. That was my thing more than anything with the Pittsburgh Steelers thing, is that 49er fans kind of forgot that this is the NFL and guys on the other side it's not going to be cakewalks. Even if you are against the most roster barren team, they're going to keep things close generally. This is the NFL. It's the greatest league of parity, in my opinion, regardless of records, because of the talent that you can have. You can have 1 or 2 players on one team and you can have a roster full of mid-level players, but those 1 or 2 players are game changers. And when they make game-changing plays, they can swing games. And that's kind of what you look at when you're looking at this. And the Giants have players like Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams who are absolute game changers on the inside. The 49ers are going to have their hands full trying to keep them away from Brock Purdy. And, if Thibodeau and Ojulari play and they can actually get some pressure in this game, then things start to change a little bit. But it's all dependent on the team that shows up on Thursday on both sides.
So let's talk a little bit about the 49ers and about Brock Purdy. The 49ers quarterback situation quarterback history, basically with Kyle Shanahan as head coach, is just so interesting. And now, Jimmy Garoppolo and drafting Trey Lance and starting Trey Lance and him getting hurt and now getting traded to Dallas. And I still don't know why Jerry Jones gave a 4th-round pick for Trey Lance, but that's a whole different story, and it's Jerry Jones. But you bring in Sam Darnold, who has a story of his own, and your starting quarterback is Mr. Irrelevant from a year ago, who came out of nowhere and played really, really well last year. He's played really well so far this year. Is Brock Purdy the guy that's finally going to put an end to this merry-go-round and be Kyle Shanahan's guy for a while?
49er fans certainly hope so, and that's the hope. Everything that you've seen within the 10 starts, the 10 regular season starts, has led you to believe that that is a possibility, a strong possibility. He's a captain on the team. When you hear the way that this team speaks about him, I've never heard Kyle Shanahan defend a quarterback on this team since he's been here more than Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy had his first so-so regular season game, and he missed some wide open throws that were walk-in touchdowns. Kyle Shanahan walked right to the podium and said, "I'm not worried about it. He'll figure it out." That's never something that he would have said about Jimmy Garoppolo, Trey Lance, Nick Mullins, CJ Beathard, Brian Hoyer. The names go on and on. And it's just it was a little bit frustrating for 49er fans who seem to have their fears a little bit calmed right now, that this genius of a coach who can draw plays and understands defensive matches and knows how to use defensive rules against the defense in terms of, like, if you're a linebacker, he knows what you're supposed to do, and he's going to make you do that, but it's going to be to his advantage. For him to be able to craft this offense and be labeled what he is and win all these games, to not have the quarterback figured out is the part that is the most head-scratching part when you come to Kyle Shanahan. Now, everything that you've seen from Brock Purdy, I don't think is a fluke. I think it's a small sample size. So it's very easy to get taken by, hey, you haven't seen enough, I don't know. But from everything that I've seen, and especially with the complements of weapons that they put around him, McCaffrey, Samuel, Ayuk, Kittle, Trent Williams, all of these guys, and then that defense, it certainly feels like Kyle feels like he's finally gotten his guy. And without Brock Purdy, Kyle Shanahan's on the hook for one of the greatest mismanagement of picks in terms of the Trey Lance thing. And now, because they've won so many games and went to the NFC Championship game 2 times during the time that Trey Lance is here, and now Brock Purdy's here, people kind of just chalk it up to, well, the draft's a crapshoot. But it wouldn't be that way if they were sitting here right now with a mid-level quarterback while waiting to see what they were going to do in next year. And that probably means Kirk Cousins.
Right. With the amount of resources that the 49ers gave up to get Trey Lance, considering how little he had actually played in college, it was quite the risk. And you're right, Brock Purdy is taking the organization off of a big hook there. One of the things that we always say about quarterbacks, and it applies to Daniel Jones a little bit too, because when the Giants hired Joe Shane and Brian Daboll, John Mara said, we've done everything possible for 3 or 4 years now to screw this kid up. We've given him the wrong coaches. We haven't given him the right players, all that kind of stuff. And I guess where that leads me to with Brock Purdy is, as I said, we talk about situations. We talk about landing in the right place. Did the NFL just completely miss on Brock Purdy's skill set, or did he just land in the perfect situation for the kind of quarterback he is with the kind of coach that Kyle Shanahan is?
That's a great question, Ed. And I think the answer isn't one or the other, and it's somewhere in the middle. And I think that was kind of the thinking for the number 3 pick, whoever it was going to be, before we found out it was Trey Lance's. You're about to land in probably the most quarterback-friendly situation, right? With a play caller who can give you layups, with a bunch of playmakers and everything. Yes, I think some people missed on the evaluation with Brock Purdy. I do also believe that there has been a big change into how people look for quarterbacks in the draft and what they're looking for. You want the guy with the legs. You want the guy with the arm. But then you start to forget some of the things that have made other quarterbacks successful that haven't been as fast, haven't been as strong, haven't had the stronger arms. And it's anticipation. It's seeing it before it comes through and throwing it. Those type of things. So the funny part is while everyone is looking for the next Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, even someone like Daniel Jones who can move with his legs and complete passes and put stress on the defense, the shift now is, well, people in the draft are going to start asking, well, how do we find our Brock Purdy? And when you start chasing something that is an anomaly a bit, is when you find yourself in trouble because you're trying to find something that's not typical. And finding a guy with the last pick and having him be the successful isn't typical, regardless of the fact that the coach knows exactly how to get guys open and he has all these playmakers. It's a little bit of both, in my opinion, Ed. It's more about the fact that Brock Purdy commands these guys. They believe in him, and he makes some big time throws, and he really knows where to go with the football. And I think he sees it the way Kyle Shanahan wants his quarterback to see it. And I think that's as important as it gets.
Right. Teams take that day 3 quarterback flyer every so often, and there's hundreds of guys who flamed out of the league, in a year or 2 years, but there aren't very many guys who turned into Brock Purdy or who turned into, Tom Brady. And it's I'm not equating, Purdy to Brady accomplishment wise, but they're examples of guys who've been successful as end of the draft type selections. It just doesn't happen very often. You always understand teams taking that flyer, but the hit rate on quarterbacks in the first round isn't good. So the hit rate on quarterbacks in the 7th round isn't very good either.
And the other part is to return value on a 7th round pick, the last pick. It doesn't have to be much because those 7th round picks barely make rosters. You've got yourself a starting quarterback that is the third. There's 2 other quarterbacks on the 49ers roster that make more money than Brock Purdy. He doesn't even count as a cap hit for the 49ers. He's not even part of the 53 cap hit. This is how you're able to keep Trent Williams, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, hopefully next year. You're able to keep Christian McCaffrey and Fred Warner and all these guys. Kyle Shanahan is trying to do something that isn't really typical in the NFL right now, because it's big bad Mahomes almost any time that you get into the Super Bowl, and every guy that's in his way is either one of these young guys who is big, fast, strong, athletic, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts. You're looking at those type of players, and Kyle Shanahan is trying to do it with defense, playmakers, and a guy that everyone overlooked. He's trying to do something that is not typical in that fashion, especially in this era of football.
All right, Jay, you mentioned the big bad Mahomes monster. Okay. And, God bless anybody who's trying to succeed when they're trying to sell Kadarius Toney as their number 1 wide receiver. But
I'm so glad that from afar, this whole Giants and Toney thing has been nothing but fun for me to watch. I never seen anything like this where a fan base and a player have had these type of interactions.
It is really amazing. And every time Kadarius Toney takes to social media to start ripping on Giants fans, it just reaffirms why the Giants were right to move on, because he's incredibly talented, but and we're getting sidetracked, but Toney is incredibly talented, but I'm not sure he's a guy who takes his job very seriously. And he's basically a 9-year-old with a social media platform. It's it's funny.
I just remember the time that he was here and he missed camp because he wanted to shoot a music video. And I'm just like, man, football is not a priority for you. And then you would think, being in a culture in Kansas City with Andy Reid, you literally just helped them win a Super Bowl, that it would kind of open your eyes to the fact that you've got a second lease on life in the NFL. And it doesn't seem like he's learned too much about it.
I guess not. But let's get back to the Mahomes monster quickly. And since you brought him up, the question is this: you guys came, within a Brock Purdy injury, possibly, of being in the Super Bowl at the end of last season. is this year, one of those years where it's a disappointment if the 49ers don't get to the Super Bowl? Is that the
Yeah,
bar for this team?
I think it is. I really do at this point. I mean, they've been so close so many times and they've gone all in with all of their guys. I mean, you making a trade for Christian McCaffrey and sending those draft picks away, which is well worth it, by the way. The young man has 11 touchdowns in 11 straight games. He's just been incredible. He's been the engine of the offense. You have all these guys in their prime. They're not getting any younger. Trent Williams is not going to continue to play football forever. George Kittle is a very physical player. Can he continue to play at this level? And then you start to look around, and I know it's week 2. The NFC looks a little open right now, right? There's no Rodgers anymore. Obviously, unfortunately, what happened with him with the Jets, but Dallas looks really good. But have we seen Dallas in like a real battle with a higher tier team at this point? The Eagles on Thursday, they didn't look so great against Minnesota as well too. And how much of Shane Steichen's influence is gone now, and now Hurts looks a little bit more mortal at this point. Yes, it's week 2 and you don't want to think that way, but you start to look around in the NFC and you start to think, man, there's tiers to who's up here. And if you can find a way to win a bunch of games, especially early in the season, which is what makes this game so important for the 49ers, and you can get that home field advantage and have the NFC Championship game come through you, then you almost double your chances to make it. And I think this fan base is sick and tired of getting there, getting close. It's got to be the year that you at least get there. And then the big question is, can Purdy slay the Mahomes monster if he's the one who makes it, which I'm not betting against him now at this point, because who can at this point? It really took – I think people forget that the Super Bowl that the Chiefs lost, every single one of their offensive linemen got injured in that game. And even Patrick Mahomes running around and trying to produce magic couldn't make anything happen when you have that amount of pressure in your face. So, yes, I would say absolutely if the 49ers don't make the Super Bowl this season, feels like a disappointment.
All right, let's talk a little bit about Thursday night. Obviously, we talked at the top of the show. Giants are a heavy underdog. If the Giants are going to have an opportunity, if the Giants are going to pull off this upset, what does that look like? And what's the chink in the armor? What's the chink in the armor that the Giants could possibly take advantage of?
Design runs with Daniel Jones. I mean, if he starts to give them fits where they can't contain him in the pocket, and he's able to keep the chains moving, and our good old friend, if it's not Saquon Barkley, our good friend Matt Breida, if he can get the ground game going, and they can start running zone read and put those running backs in conflict as to where they have to be, that was kind of a tipping point, at certain times with running backs and the 49ers defending them. And then on defense, if you guys can create turnovers, I think you're going to have to create turnovers. You're going to have a bounce go your way, maybe a punt return, something like that. You're going to need something else on defense. You're not going to be able to just bend but don't break with this offense. You're going to have to make things happen, whether that be a fumble, whether that be a tip pass, it's an interception. There's got to be ways for you guys to create big plays that are going to swing this game and at least bring it to a level where, okay, now the 49ers have to play a game where they have to be a little bit more under control, because if this starts to get away early in the game, the 49ers have the running game to just put this thing away. And if you guys are predictable on offense where you have to pass, it's not going to be a fun time. The secondary is a little bit iffy right now. Isaiah Oliver took over in the slot. I think there's a little bit of a chance for you to try something there. If you maybe, it was great to see Jalen Hyatt, pop out a little bit last week. If Jalen Hyatt can get some advantageous matchups and Daniel Jones can deliver the ball, that's kind of where that play action can really set you guys up with big plays and opportunities to score quickly. So there's many things that you can do, but mainly if you can control the game with zone read and have the 49ers have a tough time trying to stop Daniel Jones with his legs or Matt Breida with his legs, or even if it is Saquon Barkley, I'm not going to bet against them, but the run game is probably the best way on offense for you to control the clock and keep the 49ers offense off the field.
I do get a kick out of this whole Saquon Barkley magical healing powers thing because if he had these magical healing powers, how come he missed an entire season with a torn ACL and this will be the fourth time in his career that he's missed, multiple weeks with an ankle injury? Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I get a kick out. I get a kick out of the the he heals faster than most human beings thing, which that come on,
I
you
have to give
know.
respect to I have to give respect to the Giants coach for even throwing it out there to at least keep the 49ers on their toes and think that they have to
Well,
prepare for that.
well, of course he was going to do that,
Yeah.
and I wrote that today too. Of course he was going to do that. It's gamesmanship.
Yep.
It's it's the thing that NFL coaches do all the time. They won't tell you in March who the play caller is going to be on offense because, well, that's a competitive advantage for somebody in the middle of September if we tell you in March. Like, seriously? You know? I mean, I mean, come on.
Old habits die hard in the NFL, and there's
But
always those older rules that you have to go by, right?
you
Like
know,
you can't tip your hand, keep it close to the vest. But I think you don't have to be a doctor to believe that Saquon Barkley is
but
probably not going to play on Thursday.
and not to dip my toes into politics here, but I think that the NFL teams, NFL head coaches guard secrets more closely than the government does.
100%, 100%.
So it's kind of it's kind of scary, but it does seem to be the way of the NFL. All right, is there something when you look at the Giants and you look at the matchup? Is there something that you look at the 49ers and you just salivate and you think San Francisco is really going to take advantage of the Giants in this particular area, or
Yeah,
could really take advantage of the
it's
Giants?
it's a defensive line against the offensive line. Andrew
Absolutely.
Thomas, Andrew Thomas with the hamstring injury, that's tough. But the Evan Neal thing is perplexing because the young man is so talented, and I think the Giants' only recourse right now is to let him go through the growing pains right now. Nick Bosa's pretty much back now. He had 5 pressures at the end of that game, and Javon Hargrave is no stranger to the Giants as well too. This kind of feels like where there's a chance for the 49ers defensive line to really tee off on these matchups, especially if Thomas can't go. That's a hamstring injury to a lineman, never a good thing. The Evan Neal thing is something where I think the Giants fans, you have to just be patient with the young man because he is talented, but you have to let him go through the bumps and bruises. And I don't know if benching him is the way to go at this point. So it's really defensive line against offensive line. This 49ers team, I think, is close because they were at the end of the game last week. So really just piling up the pressures and sacks in this one.
I think that's the thing that scares me as well. If the Giants are not able to run the football, to maybe control some things with some quick game, things like that, getting behind in this game when you have no Andrew Thomas, you have no Ben Bredesen at left guard with a concussion, you have struggling Evan Neal. Now Marcus McKeithen did a good job Sunday, but Thursday night will be his second NFL game. John Michael Schmitz is a rookie starting center. Mark Glowinski is probably going to be starting at left guard for the first time since 2016. And Josh Azudu's starting his second game as an NFL left tackle. That's 4 Joe Shane draft picks out of that group, and they all might eventually be good NFL players, but they're all still very, very inexperienced. So I'm with you that that's the scary part for me. Did you really have to go and sign Javon Hargrave?
What's funny is I had no inkling that they were going to do that at all.
I don't
And
think they did either.
well, here's the thing. It's a little bit of a pattern with Kyle Shanahan and players that they love, and you're gonna laugh at the other one because it happened on the same day. But I spoke to a former player who was on the 2019 Super Bowl team, and we talk. We talk a little bit on messages, and he said, "Isn't it funny? All of the day one acquisitions were literally 3 players in the same season that we were there." That Kyle Shanahan would not be quiet about, and he would literally praise. Those 3 players was in the Super Bowl in 2019 or 2020 against the Chiefs. Charvarius Ward, day one, he's available, signed to a massive contract. Javon Hargrave would not be quiet about him in 2020 when they played during the COVID season. Day one, signed. The third one is the most hilarious one, and this is what I mean. I guess Kyle Shanahan knows better than I do. They played the New York Jets at MetLife, would not shut up about Sam Darnold. Day one, signed right after Javon Hargrave. When Kyle Shanahan gets tunnel vision on his guy, he will get him, and it does not matter the price.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's crazy, but yeah, you're right. I mean, if this game gets out of control, if the Giants are behind by a couple of scores, then it gets really really difficult. I wanted to ask you about Evan Neal. Did you study Evan Neal at Alabama? Did you watch him? The one thing that we have concluded, the one thing that we think about Evan Neal, if you remember, he didn't test at the combine. He didn't test at his pro days. He's a big, massive, strong guy, and we all saw I think the box jump videos that he put on social media. The one thing that we all thought was that he was this tremendous, nimble, dancing bear of an athlete, but he never tested. He never put those numbers on tape. And I think the thing that we're seeing is that he is not as good a mover. He is not as good an athlete as we thought. And I wonder if they protected him, in the draft by not testing him, because I think that he still, you can cover for some of the issues that he has, but he has in just in terms of foot speed and all of that, because he's so big and so strong and so long, but he has work to do on his technique to get there. And I mean, so I'm just curious, you know, it sounds to me like you didn't see this kind of struggle coming from him.
I didn't, and I was actually at that combine that he didn't go to as well. And the combine is the best place to either boost or kill your stock. And that's kind of the buzz around. And I hate to pivot to somebody else, but this is just an example. We all look at Kayvon Thibodeau, and we saw a guy that we was just like, wow, he was athletic in Oregon. The buzz around him was that he just didn't interview well with a lot of teams, and it just kind of went that way, right? So you can go there and you can put some really good things out there. I think we all thought that Evan Neal is coming from Alabama. It's probably the highest level of competition that you could be playing in. He's an athletic freak. The thing is what I didn't account for was the things that are going on up here right now. I think a lot of it is up here, and with offensive linemen, you can spiral fast when the game is moving too fast for you. And if you're not as athletic as people believe, you can start the win with technique. I don't know how that works. I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how your offensive line coach and your team fixes it. There is a player in there, I believe, that you guys can still get something out of. But it is immensely frustrating to see that the one thing you kind of banked on, which we all did. And when I looked at him and I evaluated him, I said, man, this guy's athletic. This is a home run pick for the Giants. He's going to be able to do things where he'll be able to pull outside and run in front of Daniel Jones and protect him. And now that is taken away. It's how do you win at the NFL level now when the athleticism that you thought was going to be there isn't there anymore? It's got to get back down to basics and teaching technique and being able to play within yourself and understanding whatever limitations you do have at this level, but understanding that as long as you're sound technique wise, you have communication, you're passing off stunts, you know exactly where the rush is coming from. That's how you can overcome the lack of athleticism. But gosh, it's so disappointing to see that athleticism not translate from Alabama.
Absolutely. All right, Jay. Just last thing, really, just a quick prediction from you on on Thursday night.
Yeah, I've got the 49ers in this one. I love the idea of you guys coming off of this win, staying in Arizona, staying on the West Coast. I believe you go to Seattle right after, right? On Monday night. So you'll be spending this entire time on the West Coast, which is good. You don't have to keep flying back and forth. I think this was kind of the best
Well, I
way for
think,
you guys to go.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think this one. I think this is actually the end of their trip because they
Oh,
come
so they'll go
home.
back and then they'll
They'll,
they'll
they'll,
come back.
they'll go back home and they play Seattle at home.
Oh,
So
at home.
they
Okay, I'm
play
sorry. I thought it
Seattle.
was
They
in
play
Seattle.
Seattle at home. Now they
Okay.
stayed because they were in Arizona. So
Oh, okay.
this will be Thursday night. Will be the end of their trip,
Right.
and then
Okay. My mistake. My
but
mistake. I'll be a
they
big Giants fan Monday night though. That game
there
definitely.
you go. There you go. They're then they're on the road for a couple of weeks after that, and they're on the road for forever and ever. It seems like the first half of the season.
I don't want to disrespect any NFL team, especially, being on this platform, which is Giant centric or anything like that. But, the 49ers, if they are the team that we believe them to be, then this is a game that they should walk away with a win. Obviously, Vegas thinks this is going to be, 10 plus points. I've watched enough NFL to know that these are the type of games that when you think you know something about it, something else happens, crazy things happen. I'm not going to discount the Giants, even if I don't believe that Saquon Barkley is going to play in this game. But I do think the 49ers are going to walk away with this. I don't really have a score prediction for you, but I do think that the 49ers get it done at home.
All right, Jay. It's hard to disrespect the Giants when you're wearing a Yankee hat. So
100%. I hope I bought myself some leeway, please.
well, you bought yourself just enough, especially since I happen to be a Yankee fan as well. So
There you go.
there you go. All right. So thank you very very much for hopping on for a little while. I've enjoyed this conversation. I hope our listeners enjoy it as well. Giants fans, thank you as always for listening. Please stay safe out there. Take care of each other, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.